All right, well, welcome. Thank you all so much for coming in and engaging with us tonight and learning a little bit more about the teacher ed cohort in this cohort orientation. My name is Dennis DeBay. I'm one of the faculty members in teacher ed. I'm actually in STEM education. So I work with a lot of the math and science education secondary folks and the elementary folks, but I'm also a site professor in Jeffco. And we'll talk about all those roles. So I'm kind of like the liaison between the university and one of the sites on campus. So I'm just going to get this PowerPoint up and running. I've never really used just PowerPoint. I do everything in Google. So we'll see if I get this. Actually, just double check. Now we should be good. Can I get some thumbs up? Does that look good? Y'all can hear me? Love it. So again, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about some parts of the program itself. We're going to be talking about, what does it mean to do our internships? We're going to be talking about kind of all the peripheral things. And then why are you here listening to me do this tonight? Usually we have people from admissions or administration that come in and give these. But you have me as a faculty advisor and mentor and kind of leader of what we're going to be talking about tonight and why I'm here. So again, the goal for tonight, we're going to meet this little cohort community. This is 4 of us. There are 8 of us total that are going to be working together. Talk about faculty mentors, which is me. Thinking about just being in the classroom. We're going to have lots of questions. Were there materials that you all were sent along prior to this? Like, was there a video or and things along those lines? Okay, we can talk about that, and then we'll talk about internships, and then some of the services that. And one of the things I really appreciate about our teacher ed program are some of the services. We have really fantastic student success center, which I highly recommend engaging with, and they'll give everything from praxis support to whatever it is you need. But it looks like there's also someone talking about it. So if you hear sounds happening, I'll need one more like thumbs up.
Hi everyone. During this night's session, we hope you'll get to know some of the members of our community, including faculty and fellow students in your cohort. By the end of the session, you should feel like you understand the program a bit better, from the broad goals of CU Denver School of Education down to the gritty details of your professional year classes and residency. Along the way, we hope to answer your questions and provide an overview of the most important information, including a description of systems that are in place to support you in your work toward becoming a great educator.
And so we wanted to take a little bit of time, and I think I might just stop share so that we can kind of say hi. Is for us to just introduce each other. I know I just kind of double checked and made sure that we know who's in what, but if you could just share maybe your name, your interest, what area of secondary education are you going to be studying, and then just maybe one thing you are excited about engaging in the program with. So maybe what we'll do is we'll start with Tanner, and when you're done, Tanner, can you pick someone else to go next?
What were the questions one more time?
Name, what you're studying, and something you're excited about in the program.
Studying, I guess I'm working on Spanish just because it's my last credit for my history bachelor. And then I'm excited to just be helping everybody, I guess. Just getting to teach US history has been really fun, and that's pretty much how it's been going. So let's go with Matthew, why not?
Hello, I'm Matthew. Studying to be an English teacher, secondary. Things I'm excited about, just getting in the classroom. So far, I've been doing the early field experience, and it's just awesome so far. So Yeah, so let's go to Megan then.
Hey, I'm Megan. I study physics. Like, physics is my life. It's all I do. I am most excited about hopefully getting people not to hate physics sooner, because that's like the worst part about physics labs and universities, that most of them already hate it.
So you're hoping that you're going to be doing physics ed?
Yes.
That is so exciting. We get so few of them through. That's extremely exciting. Thanks.
So, Kagan.
Okay, I'm Kagan. I am studying psychology, but I'm also going for my secondary social studies license. I'm really passionate about like geography and history as well. I guess I'm really excited at just like kind of experiencing the world as a teacher and building my confidence and rapport with students.
Wonderful. It is nice to meet all four of you. My name is Dennis DeBay, as it says on Zoom. And as I mentioned, my background is in STEM education. And so my background is really like, how do we humanize learning for our students? Or in a lot of cases, how do we rehumanize learning for our students? Because a lot of the things that we're talking about physics, we're talking about history, we're talking about all of these things that were created by humans. And yet there's still groups of people that say there is a certain percentage of the population, or that's how it's treated, that have access to those. So we have these crazy concepts that we feel connected to ourselves, and there are whole swaths of the population that don't feel that connection to it for a lot of awful reasons, really. And so for me, it's really, how do we rehumanize learning? And so my background is in math. I do a lot of work in STEM because I play nice with a lot of science folks as well, and we think about ways to collaborate. But I do work across all of the content areas, and I have many different students at my internship across the way. And that leads us into why I'm here, is that one of the programs that we have, I'm on this group called the Teacher Ed Leadership Team. And so we're some of the ones that get to make some of the decisions. So we get to kind of pour over your applications after you were interviewed and look at everyone's notes and stuff like that and help make some of the decisions. And we're engaged in just kind of the leadership of how teacher ed works. And part of our role in the TELT, we call it TELT group, is that we have faculty mentors. And so you all get to work with me for the next year and a half. So periodically you'll be getting emails from me kind of saying, hey, how's everything going? I'll try my best to set up some times for us to get together and chat throughout the semester, because there's just going to be stuff that you're not going to be thinking about in your courses that you might want to talk about. And this is kind of hopefully a safe group for us to be able to just sit and have some conversations. And sometimes it's fun, like some people want to set up, and we've done like explorations of articles that aren't covered in our courses to problems of practice. There's lots of different things. Or, we've done virtual potlucks in some of these groups. I'm hoping that they don't have to be virtual, that maybe we could even have some opportunities to meet up on campus as well and just sit and chat and think. And then again, since I do have close connections to both what's happening at the university and what's happening in the internship, I hope that I can just be someone that can listen to whatever it is that you need. So welcome. I'm going to go back to our slides and I will introduce you to the other faculty mentors. So this is the group. So these are the folks that work with all of the secondary education. So usually I'm the one that works with math and science, but we usually don't have enough math and science folks. And there isn't anyone that specifically works with necessarily always English or social studies. So I love to get to work with all of you. But we have some folks that are here on this team that are in Chris Carson, who's in CLDE, which is culturally and linguistically diverse education. We have Dr. Crone Westland, who works in special ed. She's also a psych professor at Carmody Middle School, which is the feeder school into Bear Creek High School, which is where I am. Chris Carson is at North High School in Denver. We have Dr. Rebecca Flasheen, who's in early childhood, Sarah Woodard, who's in literacy, and then, oh, there I am. So this is the group that will be working with all of y'all in secondary throughout the rest of this, throughout the next year and a half. Any questions at this point? We're pretty early on. I just want to double check. Okay. Do you all have sense of where you'd like to end up or where you'd like to be in terms of our internships? Do you know anything about our internship program or? We'll be talking about this through tonight. I just wanted to check. Okay. So I believe one of the things that they should have sent out to you was this video. Can I get some thumbs up, thumbs down? Did we read this video? Good, good. Or read this video, watch this video. So Bobby LaFave is a Denver-based poet who is actually currently the Poet Laureate of Colorado. And so in the video, you know, just as a reminder, he did a performance around poetry, and you saw some work with some children that he was talking about. And so one of the things I want us to think about as we're going through this tonight is, you know, how we characterize children, their situations, how society sees them, and their inherent potential. Because we're gonna connect to that in just a couple of minutes here. I also thought that we could take a look here at this particular quote. And I am going to read it. I know that you all can read it, but I'm going to just read it just to kind of let it sink in for a second. And then I have a prompt here that we can chat a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So the term community teacher denotes the accomplished practitioner in urban teaching and learning. Community teachers draw on a richly contextualized knowledge of culture, community, and identity in their professional work with children and families in diverse urban communities. Their competence is evidenced by effective pedagogy in diverse community settings, student achievement, and community affirmation and acknowledgement of their performance. And so, you know, again, you know, in a lot of ways, the program that you're engaged with is really heavily focused on how do we support urban students. And so I want us to spend a couple of minutes just so that I can get to know you all a little bit, thinking about what I just kind of came out here with this quote, and then also thinking about the video from Bobby LaFave. What do you all think is the work and action of teachers that can create successful learning environments for students in urban settings? And so I'm gonna kind of, again, bring us back here. I'm gonna put that quote into our chat. And I just want to hear from you all a little bit. What does all of this mean? Why are we here? So there's the quote. And I'm going to add the question.
I'll jump off on this. I think a lot about like what the video that Bobby did talked about was just simply advocacy for students, just making sure they get the best possible everything, support, education, the best ear to listen to, the best shoulder, like just advocacy all the way around. I think it's probably like the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'll jump off of that too. I think he ended the video by saying that students especially just need somebody who believes in them. And I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from all of the coursework I've taken so far, is that students typically won't care about anything, especially their education, unless like they know that you care. So having that attitude of knowing that your students can accomplish something can mean the difference between, I don't know, success and not success. So.
Mm-hmm.
going further from that, I would say that building that equitable like playing field and starting everybody off, trying to accommodate everybody through those who need a special education, who need an individualized education plan, anything like that is just there to bring them up to a playing field that they can play on with everybody to all work together. And I believe us as educators need to be able to cultivate that. So, and having a classroom that works everywhere is the best we can do.
I agree with what everyone has said. I really like how he said it in the video about how we get our freedom through education and that we need that support, but really we need that support because we're born with innocence and we don't quite know the limitations that society has imposed on us yet. And I feel like our job as educators to really cultivate an environment where they don't have those limitations put on them, where they become normalized at such a young age.
Right. Thank you all so much for sharing. That was fantastic. So to get us to continue with this exact frame, we're going to talk a little bit about, I think, one of the really important conceptual frames that we have within our university. So we have this essential questions framework, and we're going to hear from Chris Carson a little bit, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
Let's try to conceptualize how a commitment to social justice fits into the broad goals of this program. Take a moment to look closely at this wheel graphic, which represents our vision and purpose for teacher education. Look closely at each part. At the center, the students in our P12 partner schools. Surrounding our students, the key stakeholders with which great teachers will try to engage. Beyond this center, 5 principles that are essential to teaching and learning, and to the left, 4 essential questions. We hope you'll take a moment to examine and discuss what you notice and wonder about this conceptual framework.
And I think Chris did a really great job of explaining that, but I'd like to just maybe take a second and take a look at these essential questions. And then I'd like to continue the conversation. So our first one, what do I know and believe about myself, my students, their families, and their communities within the larger social context? Question 2, how do I act on these beliefs to create inclusive and responsive learning opportunities and transform inequities? Number 3, how do I enact principles of social justice and equity, inclusiveness, cultural and linguistic responsiveness, and learning and development theory and discipline-specific pedagogy within my pedagogical practices in order to plan, revise, and adjust curriculum, instruction and assessment to ensure success and growth for all of my students, always acting as a critical educator to advocate for my students. And then the last one, how do I reflect upon those same principles? Social justice and equity, inclusiveness, cultural and linguistic responsiveness, and then learning development theory and discipline-specific pedagogy. And so really, you'll see a lot when you start taking our courses that this wheel will show up at the top of all of our syllabi. You'll see us make these connections. And so I want us to really think about, starting off with the video and that quote, and then being able to continue on in this program. How do we think about all of these ideas, equity, social justice, learning theory, and then also be able to bring in your expertise, because you all are experts, right, in the content that you want to be talking about. We want to be thinking about physics and history and different areas in language arts and things along those lines. How do all of those things connect to inclusive, culturally and linguistically responsive practices?
On this slide, we're going to spend some time talking about how you're working towards thinking about having experiences and demonstrating your learning. This teacher preparation program is more than an isolated series of courses and residency internships. The state and the university want you to have a clear vision of what teachers must be able to know and do to be successful. This slide represents the commitment we have to ensuring that your program is coordinated and coherent, and that it provides you with many opportunities to acquire the knowledge base of teaching. We plan your program beginning with the abstract, broad scope of the Colorado Teacher Quality Standards, and bring these standards down to the concrete daily work of teaching represented in the anchor competencies. This thorough planning is to ensure that you have many opportunities to learn about and practice the work of teaching, and many opportunities to think through the values and behaviors necessary to be a strong teacher for all children and young adults. This vision is also reflected in the Colorado Teacher Quality Standards. The essential questions that you have just finished discussing have been created by the teacher education program in order to put the state and university vision into practice. These essential questions lead into what we call anchor experiences, which are experiences grounded in the work of real teachers. These anchor experiences help you consistently connect university coursework with school practices in your internships. Along the way, we also embed authentic, performance-oriented assessments that allow you to carefully reflect on and demonstrate your knowledge and abilities as an emerging teacher.
Sally is a fantastic literacy professor who's actually retiring at the end of this year. And we will miss her. But one of the things that I think that also connects to, there are certain things that are expected from the state. And so we talk about these idea of these teacher quality standards. And once you get into your internships, you're going to have whole groups of assessment documents that look at some of these standards and making sure that we are able to support you in the things that we need to do to help you get your license. And we connect all of those to those essential questions we talked about and some of the competencies along the way. But I think one of the most important things for us to think about are actually the professional expectations once you're both in your the courses here at CU Denver as well as the internships. So we have Dr. Vlasheen who has some thoughts there. And then we're going to actually take a look at the professional dispositions document that we have. And we're going to, as a group, just kind of chat through it and talk about things that we feel really good about and things we're excited to work on in our program.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Vlasheen, and we'd like to introduce you now to a tool that we use in the School of Education and Human Development called the Teacher Education Professional Behaviors and Dispositions Tool. You might have already seen this tool in some of your coursework, and we want to take a moment to look at it together and to think about its meaning for us. The root word of disposition in Latin means to arrange and to put in order. So we might think about a tool like this as one way for us to collectively align our values, our commitments, and the professional ethics that influence our behavior toward one another. The behaviors toward our students, as well as families, colleagues, and the communities within which we serve as educators. Our dispositions and behaviors are guided by our shared beliefs about what care and education, about teaching and learning, about fairness, honesty, responsibility, and social justice mean. We see this tool as a map to help us as we guide all of our collective work together and to support us to have the kinds of conversations about how our work is influencing those around us and the daily life in our schools, to have the kind of conversations that help us to grow in those ways. So we hope that you will see these the elements and the indicators in this tool as the high expectations that we hold for one another. We represent our collective work each time we're out there in the community. Anyone who knows that we're associated with the University of Colorado Denver School of Education and Human Development will know that we come with the kind of professionalism and care that they can trust. So we want to take some time to look at this tool, to explore it together, and to have some dialogue. Enjoy.
Okay. We have some slides on this, but I think what I want us to do is to actually take a look at the document itself. So I'm going to share it in the chat here in 2 seconds. Can you all try, I just popped that into the chat. Can you all take a look at that and can you open it? Great. I'm going to share my screen just for a second. So this is a document that we use that kind of goes over, again, a lot of the expectations and professional dispositions that we're looking at within our teacher ed program. And you'll see that it probably leans pretty heavily on kind of the work that we're doing when we're in our internships, but you will also see this very heavily thought about in your courses as well. How do we professionally work in the work that we do, whether we're in coursework, whether we're at our internships, because quite often, and as someone who's a psych professor, you know, there's not always that are going to be positions that are open up at the schools that you're interning in. But I always kind of look at this as this is a kind of several month job interview, right? And that extends to your courses as well. The professors are the ones that are going to be, you know, able to write you letters of recommendations for courses along with your folks that you work with at your internships. And so this is kind of has become more and more a really important document for us to kind of take a look at. And so the way that it's looked at is that we actually have different levels. So you kind of have, you know, you're either showing exemplary practice, you're meeting expectation, you're getting there, which, I mean, you're in a teacher ed program to talk about all of this stuff and explore it. So, you know, approaching expectations is a good place to be as you're entering into the program and starting your internships and then not meeting expectations. But you'll see that we look at this idea of like asset-based mindset and commitment to learning, collaboration, continuous improvement and professional growth, communication skills, and then just general professionalism. And so what I would like for you to do is to just take a couple of minutes and look through this particular document, and I'm going to put up some prompts. After you've had a couple of minutes to look through, I would love to chat out a word or phrase that comes to mind when you think about professional dispositions and behavior. So again, think about this particular document, look at it, and then I'd love to just hear, you know, what's something that comes to mind when you have had a chance to look through.
Big one that I'm getting is just teamwork, if I could summarize it. Seems like a lot of them revolves around that.
I would say like just respect for your peers and students and everyone all around and expecting it in return seems to be a overarching theme.
Those are two big ones. Yeah, absolutely. You know, there is and you'll see as we move along and progress, there's a pretty big community of support that exists here. And so being able to kind of work together and support each other becomes really important, because this is a lot of work, in a good way. I highly recommend it. Absolutely love our program, and I love the idea of being a teacher. That's why I'm here. I was a high school math and computer science teacher for a decade. It's a fantastic job, but again, it takes a lot of training and thought, and so this, making sure that you're thinking about those two things are going to be really important throughout your journey. What else, folks?
I got the sense of accountability for it, not just accountability for your own growth and actions, but the accountability for how there should be responsibility on the educators for these students learning. And I really like that. That resonated with me a lot.
Fantastic. I love that.
I mean, yeah, the accountability, which is built into like also like the professionalism, which I really like as well. Yeah.
I have another question. Y'all are, again, this is a brand new document. You'll be seeing this connected to a whole other document once you get into your internships and again in your courses. But what do you think, after your very, very quick initial glance, what ways do you think that we might be able to use this tool to support as you kind of like engage in your coursework into your internships? What might be a way that we can use this document? I think that y'all started talking about accountability. You started getting there. What are your thoughts?
So I think it's helpful to set a standard, and not only just a standard of expectations, but it really puts out a goal and something to work towards, because those are pretty high expectations and standards. And it's not something that just ends once you get there. It's something that you have to continue with even past the program.
Definitely with what Megan said, I also like the part where it says that you're going to continue to learn throughout your teacher experience, both in how you become an educator and both how you teach a subject. Especially like with me with history, is that it's ever changing and everybody's perspective is constantly moving. I believe that giving that standard to my students is what they're hoping for as well, is always knowing that this is not a beginning and ending. This is a continuous study. So
Yeah.
It's really good to like help create norms. Like we're talking about, like for things to use in the future and stuff like that as well,
That's a big one. When we start thinking about, when you all are starting this summer, correct? Is that no, some people summer, some people fall. So, when you all start your internships in either the fall or for the fall people starting in the spring, that norm setting and being involved in that process is such an important part of how do we support our students. And you'll see that within the first couple of weeks of learning. And so, yeah, I think that's a big one. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything in there that you all thought, gosh, this is something I want to be working on? And Kagan, I want to make sure that I get to you too, because I think I missed you on the last question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody had really good ideas. I'm in agreement, I guess.
So anything that y'all want to just personally work on? And I asked that question because, again, the expectation isn't that you all are just doing this immediately, is that you're working towards it at all times.
I mean, I think a lot of that is just with the like what Tanner brought up was the the growth mindset, something that like we're always going to be evolving and learning, and that's kind of the whole point of education, so I think that's, if I had something to work on, I guess that would be it for right now, is to like to maintain that, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I would like to work on the communication part a little bit more for myself. I know I get anxious, especially when it comes to talking to professors myself. And I assume that other people experience that. And that's definitely something that I want to make sure that I make it easy for people to come to me and give them all different ways of coming to me, whether it's in person or through email or whatever it may be.
Megan, that's a big one. The professors in the teacher ed program are incredibly caring and thoughtful people, and they love hearing from students. And it's very hard to sometimes feel like, yeah, I should just check in with my professor, but we all prefer it 100%. And then how that kind of connects to what's happening in your internship. One of the most important things to think about when you start working with a mentor teacher, or as we call them, clinical teachers, is that you're in constant contact about what's happening, right? And so that communication piece becomes huge. So thank you for bringing that up. What else? What do we want to work on?
I would say, like, for me, learning general professionalism and such from colleagues and other things, going from like certain history classes where they're swearing up a storm and like talking about like certain events in really graphic manners, and trying to like teach that to students who are not of age, I guess, is definitely something that I'm interested in, and almost making history professional is something I've always been trying to work on. But that's probably the thing I would work on the most for myself. So yeah.
Those are great ideas.
I would have to agree with Tanner, especially. I feel like, especially in like any job I'm in, when I start to get really comfortable, my first language is sarcasm. And so knowing those boundaries, especially with like the students and other faculty and like how not to cross those, because I mean no harm by it, but other people might.
And students sometimes, just like secondary students, don't get sarcasm necessarily. Some do. I feel like I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I feel like she gets sarcasm quite well. She uses it very well. I don't know how well she gets it. She's fantastic at using it. Did everyone get a chance to kind of talk about a goal? Did I miss anyone this time? I feel like everyone got to. That's great. Look, we're already setting goals. This is great. We're going to start talking about internships. It's kind of like a hard break here. So we're going to talk about our internships, and they're going to be a series of 5 slides where you're going to be hearing from the director of partnerships. I think mostly just her, and it's going to be about 15 minutes. And then I believe we're going to take a little bit of a break. Sometime within that, shortly after that, there might be 1 or 2 slides after that. So do we have any questions, or has anything come up before we do that? Are we ready for that? Okay. And then if while this is happening, write down some questions. I would love to hear some questions at the end of these next 5 slides. So write down some things and that you'd like to talk about, and then we'll have 1 or 2 more slides, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll have round 2.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Cindy Gutierrez, and I'm the Director of Clinical Teacher Education and Partnerships at CU Denver. For the next few slides, I'm going to share really helpful information so that you can really understand your role as an intern during your professional year residency internships. All of our internships take place in carefully selected schools that are part of our network of what we call professional development schools, or PDSs for short. These schools are a place where the educators and the leaders in those schools, along with the university, share a set of core commitments. PDSs become a place to grow and cultivate the talents of all educators, new and veteran teachers alike. They're also a place where we are constantly working to innovate and better understand and improve the ways that teaching can support student learning and how we can collectively constantly support educator development. And lastly, they are a place where we are all committed to P12 student success. Our partner schools love having our teacher candidates because you bring such talent and such commitment to really supporting the success of their P12 students. The faculty who work in our schools also bring the same level of commitment, and that together we are always working to enhance that student success. None of our schools are utopian places because that just doesn't exist in education. Schooling and teaching and learning are the most complex human endeavors that can take place. And so what PDSs allow us to do is really concentrate our resources together to support your development and help you learn how to teach and navigate all of the complexity that exists in schools and education, and to do that in an incredibly a deep way, in a way that supports our commitments to social justice and equity.
And so we have very specific PDS schools, because often there's a question that, I have a school that I know some people and I really want to get to work there. We have very specific schools that we do work with in both Denver Public Schools, Aurora Public Schools, Jeffco, and Mapleton Public Schools. That's it.
Who has stepped into a role of really becoming our liaison for In each of our PDS schools, there are several individuals who are there to support your development. First, every school has a university site professor. This is a faculty member. They might be a full-time faculty who also teaches courses, or they might be one of our part-time faculty who has had a long career in education and brings a great deal of talent in understanding teacher development. But they're going to be at your school at least one full day a week, really supporting all of the candidates in that school and all of the goals of the partnership. They get to know that school deeply, become a member of their community, know all of the staff and the faculty in those schools, but they are particularly there to support your ongoing development. They will provide you coaching, feedback, observe your teaching. They will run a seminar on site, what's called our collaborative learning community seminars, but they are really your key faculty person from the university at your school. Next is a school-based site coordinator. This looks different in every school, but it's typically a master teacher or an instructional coach or an assistant principal who has stepped into a role of really becoming our liaison for our CU Denver partnership and provides that insight from the school's perspective. They're there to support you with lots of logistical details in the school of, where do you sign in and any other particular things about the bell schedules and all of that type of information. But they work very, very closely with the site professor, and they really together are often referred to as your site team of support. Next are clinical teachers. These are all the practicing teachers who mentor and co-teach with you. You're going to get to work with a variety of clinical teachers, not just one singular clinical teacher, throughout your time in CU Denver's program. This is important so that you can get to see a variety of different approaches to teaching. And sometimes you might have a clinical teacher who has one approach to teaching that you're going to be able to learn a lot from, but you might be like, I really don't know if that's exactly how I might do it in my own future classroom, while as you might see a different style from a different clinical teacher. Again, there's always something to learn from the practice of our clinical teachers. And then lastly, you are not alone at your PDS school site. Each school selects a group of about 7 to 10 teacher candidates, depending on the capacity of the school, who are there to complete their clinical experiences. Some are undergraduates who are in early clinical blocks, and some are professional year residency interns who are in that year-long experience. It's important to understand how your professional year residency internships will integrate with all other aspects of your program. So this slide is about your first semester. It's really important to understand, first and foremost, that all teacher candidates follow the school district calendar of the school that you've been matched to. That school district calendar is always a little bit different than the university calendar, as it always starts before university courses start, tends to go longer than the university semester goes, and your breaks might be a bit different than what the university calendar is. Again, every aspect of your school district calendar you will be following as a professional year resident. So let's talk a little bit about how the rest of the slide lays out how you'll experience the program from month to month and week to week. In that first row, you see that our candidates can start their residency year either in August or in January, and it goes across through the semester. Because your school district starts before university courses, all of our candidates engage in what we call full-time immersion weeks. This is a time where you will go full-time at your school site at the very beginning of the semester when schools are starting back up, so that you can engage in setting up classrooms with your clinical teacher, engage in professional learning that's being provided by the school and the district, really get to really immerse yourself and enhance all of the opportunities to build your relationships with the teachers and the children and the youth in that school. Once classes begin, then you will go down to your regular internship days. You'll also notice that in the first semester, there are 2 different internships you complete, Internship 1 and Internship 2. In the middle of the semester, we have what's called Switch Week, and what this just communicates is that you're moving from the expectations of Internship 1 on into the expectations of Internship 2. Sometimes teacher candidates will also switch classrooms and get to work with a new clinical teacher. Other times, depending on the context of the school and your license, you might stay with your same clinical teacher throughout the entire semester. That second row communicates how you'll experiencing the semester from week to week. So again, because the university starts later than your school, before the semester begins, the Office of Partnerships always brings all of our new professional year residents together for what's called Internship Professional Learning Day, IPLD. This is a critical space to really help you know all of the ins and outs and the details and the logistics of every aspect of your internship. Then what you can come to pretty much expect is that for the most part, you'll have courses on Mondays and Tuesdays. Again, it depends on your license because everybody takes some slightly different courses. Sometimes your course might be in the day or the afternoon or the evening. Sometimes it's online, but for the most part, Mondays and Tuesdays. And then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, you are in your internship for 2 full days. This is also when you'll have your on-site CLC seminar with your site professor. And that is a really important space that helps you constantly integrate what you're learning in your courses with what you're experiencing out at your school site. And then lastly, during the first semester, Fridays are left open for 2 particular reasons. First of all, once a month on the first Friday, our Office of Partnerships facilitates a required program-wide seminar that is a 2-hour seminar with our candidates once a month. There's some really critical content and curriculum in your development that all of our candidates need, no matter what level they're at. So we have all of you come together for that first Friday seminar. The other reason that Fridays are open, and are that we really encourage all of our candidates to substitute teach. This is such a great experience and a win-win-win for everyone, where you get great opportunities to learn and extend your development. Because you know the school, and particularly your clinical teacher's classroom, you are the first go-to person who will be the most effective substitute teacher. It's also a great way for you to earn money.
I absolutely agree with that.
So let's talk about the second semester. Again, all teacher candidates continue to follow your school district calendar. So you'll start again back in your internships before your university coursework starts. So that is another time that we will engage you in full-time immersion weeks. Again, this just continues to enhance your relationships and your knowledge and your understanding about the context of the school so that you can be successful in integrating everything you're learning in your courses once the university begins. For all of our elementary and early childhood candidates, you will typically stay in the same PDS because everything about your license is able to be delivered in that context. But for our special ed and secondary candidates, you will often switch to a new PDS school the second semester because your license covers a larger age or grade level span. So we want to always try to give you as many opportunities to see all of the varying levels of students that your license covers. Doesn't always work out that way because we always want to prioritize the strongest clinical teachers that you're working with. And sometimes our schools, again, see our teacher candidates as such a critical pipeline to hire from that they may want to cultivate and keep you at your school. So they often sometimes may advocate for that. But we always do try to give you those different levels of working with students amongst the age range of your license. So let's talk a little bit about how internship 3 in the second semester is a full internship. It's just one internship, but broken into 2 parts. So during the first 8 weeks, you're going to be engaging in your last courses on Mondays and Tuesdays primarily. Again, might differ just slightly depending on your license area. And then your internship days will all be on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Then when switch week comes in the middle of March or October, then you are going to transition into full-time teaching so that you can move into becoming the lead teacher in your classroom, where you really are taking on the lead responsibilities for all the planning, all of the teaching. You're still co-teaching with your mentor teacher because we want 2 teachers focused on student success, but you're the person really in the lead position for making all of the decisions and doing the lesson planning in all of those aspects of teaching. Your coursework will really come to a close or start to really taper off pretty significantly because you do have those higher demands in your school site. And then as you come to the end of the program, it's such a beautiful experience as we watch all of you grow because you really are so ready to launch into becoming your own classroom teacher. And it's unbelievable for the many, many decades that we've been doing this, how much our partners tell us our candidates look like second and third year teachers at the completion of their residency year.
One more, and then I'm gonna check in on questions.
A couple of final points about your residency year internships. I can't tell you how important it is to really embrace and recognize that your experiences will be unique. It won't be exactly like your classmate who you are in the same classes with, but you're in different PDSs because every school is unique. The most successful candidates that we support always have a mindset where they are willing to embrace it all and be open to the learning from and with everyone. We also know that professional dispositions and behaviors are so essential to your success. Every moment that you are in your residency internships, you are building your professional identity. Everybody around you is watching you build that professional identity. The more that you engage thoughtfully in those mindsets and dispositions and behaviors, the more capital you're building for yourself about the professional you are becoming. And all of our school partners talk with each other. You would think Denver is a big place, but it's not. It's a pretty small place. So it can pay huge dividends to make sure that you're engaging every aspect of those professional dispositions and behaviors and modeling those, because that is exactly what principals and district leaders are looking for in hiring new teachers. Another key point is communication is going to be so key. It's complex. You will be managing a lot of demands, but it is so critical to communicate, and particularly that you are checking and responding to your email daily, because you are going to get communication from a lot of different people, from your school and your district, from your site professor, your site coordinators, your clinical teachers. You will be getting communication from CU Denver staff like the Office of Partnerships and your academic advisors about key dates for the semester, your faculty around your coursework. And we know that life happens, and what's so critical is just to communicate and let us know if you need support, where you are with things, but that communication is going to be critical. We're here to support you, but you have to do your part. And then lastly, the biggest question everybody wants to know is, when am I going to know what school I've been matched to? Well, wait for the second half of this orientation, where you're going to get to hear from Rachel Cornelius, the manager of our Office of Partnerships, and she'll provide more information about that.
That was a lot. But I'd love to check in here. Like, did anything come up? What are maybe some questions that we might have connected to our internships?
I had one question about the second semester. So the courses we take that semester, do they only run for 8 weeks? Are they like accelerated courses or?
That's a really, so you're talking about your third internship, that last internship that you did?
Yeah, since like switch week halfway through, you go full time. So
No, no, they are not. So the courses that you end up taking is one of them is your capstone course.
Right.
And that's a fantastic course. It's one of my favorites. And the whole idea of capstone is that there are just certain things that you're going to produce as a third intern that we will be using for reporting when we think about, supporting the evidence that you have for becoming a licensed teacher to CE. And that essentially means that you're going to plan, enact, and reflect upon units, series of lessons, things along those lines. So you'll be taking that course right through to the end of the semester, just because you'll be doing that in the last half of the semester anyway, all that.
Okay, that makes sense. Just because like the way it was mapped out made it look like the courses stopped 8 weeks in. So it's like.
And then there's probably going to be one other content course that you'll end up taking as well. Some of them are online, like asynchronous online. Some of them aren't. And so, it'll depend on who your instructor is. Will you be going to campus? I think I've now permanently moved the STEM capstone to have hybrid online because people are tired. That's
Right.
part of the semester. So having to come to campus, as much as I absolutely love getting to teach and work with folks on campus, it becomes a lot. And so it'll depend on your instructor, essentially. But yeah, no, you'll have probably 2 courses right through to the end of the semester in your last semester. But again, one of them will be that internship course, which will just be kind of almost like an extension of I don't even call sometimes I don't really call it a course because it's kind of like a workshop where you have deliverables, but you're kind of working with your peers and like, oh, cool, that's really cool. You're in in science ed and you're doing this, and you're in math ed and you're doing this. I'm going to steal that idea. It's kind of like a collaborative, to me anyway, a collaborative workshop with specific deliverables.
Well, thanks.
What else we got?
At the end of the first semester, is there an immersion week at the end of that? I was curious. I thought I heard somebody at my school mention that. So,
An immersion week at the end of the semester?
yeah, like in December. So,
No, I mean, usually folks will end up continuing their internship. So in your first and second internship, which is that first semester internship that you take, most there's kind of a mid-December expectation from the university, but most students ride out till the end of when they get their fall or winter break. So usually you just go straight through until then, but there's no real immersion. You'll have an immersion week if you're in a internship in the fall, which you will be in some. It'll either be your first, second intern or your third internship. Your spring internship will be an immersion of like probably a couple of days, because usually it's, even though the university doesn't come back until I think that after break, I think that they dive into this a little bit, but I mean, usually kids are back in most districts around the 5th, 6th of January. So usually your first day in January is like the day before that, when the teachers all come back. So it's like immersion day. And then the expectation is that there is kind of an immersion week, but with the students after that. So you're expected for a certain amount of time before courses start to kind of go for, so it might end up being a week, but you'll have more expectations at the beginning of the semester before courses start, but there's nothing at the end of the semester usually. Others.
How many different clinical teachers can we expect to work with?
The likely scenario is that throughout it, you will have 2. One of them in a high school setting and one of them in a middle school setting, likely, not guaranteed. I have a third intern who's actually splitting between 2 right now, because he's actually his mentor teacher, he's at Bear Creek. He's a math ed person, and Bear Creek actually hired him for after this semester. And so part of it is she teaches AP courses, and they can't have student teachers take over AP courses. And the other part is that they just wanted him to learn from the teacher who teaches the same types of courses that he's going to be teaching next year. So he's actually split between 2 right now. Some people split between 2 in the first internship, but the general scenario is you'll have 1 for your first semester and 1 for your second semester. Any others? Tanner.
It said I was talking about having the substitute teacher on Fridays and such. I know that the Colorado requires a bachelor degree, and I'm not technically graduating until after I have my teacher licensure thing, so I'm not sure like how that would work out.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you 2 more slides, and then we're definitely gonna take a break. But that's a good question. Yeah, that gets a little bit funkier. And that'll be probably a good question for Rachel Cornelius and the Office of Partnerships, but or they might cover it in this upcoming slide, which is a brand new slide. So we're going to talk, we have 1 slide about COVID, 1 slide about what were we just talking about? What was substitute teaching, and then we'll take a break, and so I hope that that'll give some insights. We're going to talk about interning in the time of COVID, because we're still obviously dealing with stuff.
You may be wondering how our program has adapted in the time of COVID-19. I can tell you it has been a time of innovation, agility, and adaptability. All of our candidates have truly leaned in, working side by side with their clinical teachers to create new models of teaching and learning. Oftentimes, our candidates have been situated as leaders, sharing new ideas they are learning in their preparation coursework and ways their own instructors are modeling innovative remote and hybrid teaching strategies, while continually ensuring that strong, supportive relationships with their students and families remain at the center of their work. And throughout this year, school leaders have told us time and time again how much they have valued the skills that our candidates have learned during this time, making them even more marketable in the educator workforce as we imagine what new innovations born out of this time will remain post-COVID. As we look ahead to the next academic year, we are hopeful that there will be a return to more normalcy. But COVID is certainly not going to disappear suddenly by August. We know we will need to remain flexible in our work with our school partners, as there still may be times that instruction switches to remote learning due to quarantines and other issues. Lastly, we want to highly encourage everyone to get the COVID-19 vaccine. They are highly effective and safe. We want to do everything within our power to ensure the health and safety of our teacher candidates and the teachers, students, and other staff we work so closely with in our partner schools. The Auraria Health Center has now opened up access to all CU Denver students to obtain the COVID vaccine, or we encourage you to seek out the vaccine through your personal health care provider or other community vaccination site.
I would just kind of briefly add to that, they were talking about the idea of like moving back to normalcy. There were so many issues with our education system before COVID that were exacerbated by COVID. And I'm hoping that it's, I guess, maybe a new normal, but this is a really exciting time to become a teacher, I think, because a lot of things are changing that needed to be changed. And you all are kind of at the ground or second floor of that. Any questions specifically about that? I think we have one district as of right now that doesn't say that you have to have a vaccine. That may change come. A lot will happen from now, between now and August, or now and January.
The teacher education program is a full-time, rigorous experience where you will be balancing multiple courses and internships that will increase in time commitment and expectations across the program. It will demand your full-time attention to prioritize attending class, being prepared for your internships, engaging in your internships fully, and the time you will need to spend outside of class and internships, completing readings, assignments, lesson planning, and more. Because of this, we do not recommend that you work during this year of the program. But we also recognize the complications that this can bring. We encourage you to seek out scholarships and full-time financial aid, special education, secondary science, and math teacher candidates, as well as undergraduate elementary candidates completing the CLDE added endorsement, are eligible for the federal Teach Grant that can provide additional financial support accessed through completion of the FAFSA. We also want to set you up for the possibility of being able to substitute for pay in your PDS school and district on non-internship days, which can provide supplemental income as well as serve as a great learning and development experience for you. All of our partner districts already require the professional year candidates receive their substitute teaching authorization from the Colorado Department of Education so that you will be able to flexibly work in various classrooms as an intern during your residency year. More information will be provided to you about getting your sub-license and being prepared to sub in the district once you receive information from the Office of Partnerships about your placement. We do know also that some TCs have been able to balance working part-time with their residency year responsibilities, but it requires extremely high levels of organization and efficiency in managing multiple demands on your time and ensuring that you are still able to meet the expectations of the program in both your coursework and your internships, such that working does not impede on your expectations as a teacher candidate. This is more doable during the first semester of the residency year, given the lighter demands of the internship, but the second semester, particularly the final 8 weeks, are most rigorous, and we highly recommend that you do not work. If you do have questions, concerns, or need someone just to think through possibilities, please reach out to your faculty mentor or your academic advisor, and we will help you try to problem solve.
And so Tanner, I had thought, so I think that you are able to get an like a 1-year authorization. And so I don't think that that should be a concern. I wanted to make sure. But again, we'll just stay in touch and ask lots of questions, and we'll keep you all updated along the way. Any questions about either of those 2 slides, folks? Feeling good so far? We're going to take a break. We're going to take 5 minutes. 5 minutes, is that enough time? Is that okay if we do 5? And then we're going to come back. When we come back, we're going to be talking about kind of the idea of some information on registering for courses. We're going to talk about kind of who helps y'all with that, who are the supports that we have throughout, what are some of the things that we have. We're going to talk about the practice exam, which y'all will need to do, and then we're going to couple more things, and then we're going to wrap up. So let's take, what time is it? It is 1/4 after. Let's come back at 20 after, and then we'll keep this party going.
Why I drink mushrooms every morning. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and I got honest with myself. Coffee often made me feel anxious and hectic. It felt like fuel for my distractions. It's highly addictive, so it makes people wait in lines like this and wear stupid hats like this. I knew I wanted out. So I turned to an amazing alternative called mud water.
Hey folks, welcome back. I have PowerPoint number 2. Give me just a second. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the supports that exist and some of the things to be thinking about as you are getting ready to start the program. And then I want to make sure that we can kind of wrap up with any other final questions you might have, and I can hopefully help.
Welcome back. We are now going to shift our gears a little bit and talk about the CU Denver School of Education and Human Development side of your professional year orientation. Welcome back. We are now going to
Oh, sorry about that. So this is the advising team. And so depending on where you fit within all of this, these will be the people that will help you kind of in terms of the advising for next steps for registering for courses, things along those lines. You can also send these questions to me. I may not know all of the advising and admissions type stuff because these are the experts in it. But I know where to go and how to help you. And at the very end, I'll make sure to add my email to the list. And we're doing a recording of this. I'll probably send an email out to the whole group and say, hey, here's my email. Please reach out if you have any questions. Here's a recording in case you want to go back over stuff for the first time.
I have a quick question about this.
Got it.
I think because I've up until now mostly been reaching out to Rosalinda, and then I've just been assigned to Danielle. So moving forward, should I just be reaching out to Danielle, or can Rosalinda help me with the master's stuff too?
She might just move you along to Danielle. So I would probably recommend making the switch and start emailing to Danielle.
Okay.
The only thing, Rosalinda's fantastic and she might be able to respond, but if she's not able to, because it's not part of her workload, then I just want to make sure that you get the answers that you get in a reasonable
right amount. And I just don't want to waste other people's time. So
yeah, so no, I would definitely email. I think for just about all of you except for Tanner, it'll be Danielle, and then Tanner, it will continue to be Rosalinda if you have been working with her before. This is always a big one. So again, you're going to be hearing from your advisors along the way for when it's time to be able to register for courses. And our course plans are pretty kind of locked and loaded. So there's not going to be a lot of, you'll have to kind of think about content wise, what courses you need to take. And if there are any electives that you're taking along the way, but otherwise it's going to be pretty planned out. Any questions about that? We're going to be looking at we're actually going to be looking at a course shell that you may have been invited to already, but probably will be pretty soon, that has a lot of this information in it as well. I highly recommend the Success Center team. We're actually in the midst, you might notice that there is no director there. That's because we're actually in the midst of hiring a brand new director for the Success Center. And they're a group that can help you with anything from time management through to studying for praxis exams to anything that you really need along the way. Jocelyn, I'm super excited. I've never seen Jocelyn on there. She's one of our rock star students. She's a math education student who's actually going to be graduating right now, and she is awesome. So she's one of, I guess she's now one of the tutors that work for the Success Center, which I didn't know. So she's actually might be, not only is she taking a new job, she might be starting a doctoral program in the fall, and she is one of the, she's just awesome. Fantastic. But yeah, honestly, I would highly recommend if there's, even if you're falling behind, or if you want to kind of like look for resources, the Success Center is such a fantastic resources that we have that not a lot of other programs have, that I highly recommend. A lot of the work that you do is going to be in Canvas. How many of y'all are pretty familiar with Canvas as a learning management system? Yeah. And so you will be getting invites to Canvas for your program. There will be one that has resources from the Success Center. That MAT one, or the UG Professional Year one, is huge. It has so many resources. In fact, I'm going to just take a second and I'm going to pull up, if I can find it. The MAT version of it anyway, and you can kind of get a sense of what is in it.
Should we hypothetically have all of those on our Canvas shell, or will we be getting them?
You will be getting those. I don't know the timeline exactly, but you will be getting those. So for example, they should both look just about the same, whether you're in professional year undergraduate or the MAT course shell. So this is just kind of front page. And if you go to modules, it's going to have everything from, welcome to a lot of the things that I was talking about earlier when it comes to teacher ed, the advising, who you need to go to, resources, things that you need to know about campus, the praxis exam. Quick raise of hands. How many people know what the praxis exam is? Awesome. I love that. How many of you all have taken the praxis in your content area? One. It would be good to kind of start thinking about that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit why. If you're looking for accommodations and modifications for praxis, some things you need to think about. We're going to be learning about who's in the Office of Partnerships, who really does all of our internship work, licensure, all of that stuff. So these course shells are really helpful. So as soon as you see those, kind of check them out. They're a really good resource when you're first starting to think about some of the things that you need to know. And then at the very end of the program, they're really helpful because you're like, oh yeah, I've got to do some things to get ready for licensure. It's all there. This is the Office of Partnerships. These people are the Office of Partnerships, and they're great.
Hello, this is Rachel Cornelius, and I'm the manager of the Office of Partnerships and the Teacher Education Program in the School of Education and Human Development at CU Denver. I'm currently working on placements for internships. This process takes place in November for internships that start in January, and it takes place in April for internships that start in August. The internship placement process is quite involved. I take all the information that you provided on the placement matching preference form. I take all the information about background checks, about exams that have been completed, about your internship intentions, and I merge it all with all the other data that is on my placement spreadsheet. I then share all of those information pages with the site teams from our professional development schools. The site teams review each and every one of the placement matching preference forms and select candidates that they feel will be best matched with the teachers at their respective schools. The process takes a couple of weeks. Once I have confirmed all the placements with our schools, I will be sending you placement assignment emails as well as class numbers that you need to register. These emails are sent out in early December for internships that start in January and in early May for internships that start in August. The information that I sent to you will include the class numbers that you need to register for internship. We've purposely hidden all of the class numbers so that folks don't go ahead and register for internships where they are not assigned. Additionally, you will be receiving a welcome letter from the site team at your school. Those welcome letters will provide all the information that you need to know about the school that has chosen you for internship. It might also include district onboarding information that you must complete as soon as possible. Some districts require student-teacher applications. Some require you to get a badge. Some partner districts might even require you to complete another fingerprint background check in order for you to student teach in their district. Normally, the district will cover the cost of these additional fingerprints. Unfortunately, the fingerprints that you submitted for the School of Education cannot be shared with other entities, and vice versa. The prints that you submit for your district cannot be shared with the university. It's very important that you look for those next step emails and start those action items so that you're ready to start internship next semester. And we know that life happens sometimes and students might need to defer or withdraw for whatever reason. What we ask most importantly though, is that if you do need to defer and you know you will not be able to complete your internship, let me know as soon as possible so that we can inform the school and they will not be expecting you. Welcome to the Teacher Education Program. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions for me.
Rachel is always the best person to email when you have questions about internship. You can ask me too. I have lots of thoughts as well, and I'm an easy person to get in touch with. However, Rachel is the holder of so much of this knowledge, and she's such a fantastic partner in this process. The other two people that they didn't mention in the recording is Cindy Gutierrez. Have you all gotten emails from Cindy? So she's actually the director of clinical teacher education. So she's kind of the main person when it comes to the work that you're going to do in your internship. And then she's also works with Dr. Jody Baker, who's also similarly a fantastic connection. So whenever we think about internship, the three main people that really run the show are Rachel, Cindy, and Dr. Jody. Now we've got a little slide about praxis, which I know you all said that you have a bit of a sense of. But,
Hello, this is
an important thing to be thinking about. And then I have a couple of thoughts on this as well.
Colorado requires all teacher candidates to complete the praxis exam specific to their license in order to become a licensed teacher and finish the program. The praxis exams are primarily focused on the content of your knowledge related to the license you're going to have. So for example, if you're going into secondary math, it is going to test all of your content knowledge that you would need to teach mathematics for 7th through 12th grade. Or if you're going to teach elementary, it's going to test the content knowledge that you'll need to be able to teach reading and math and social studies and science. Most of the exams have far less to do with how to teach that information. So it's important that you are studying for the praxis exam outside of your courses, because the knowledge you gain through your courses is going to be different, although necessary, than what is required to pass the praxis exam in most cases. Again, that test is very specific to your licensure area. You'll see a website there that you would go to know exactly the requirements for your praxis exam, what scores you need to achieve to pass those exams. And it's also important to note that some of our licensure areas like special ed, elementary, and early childhood must take multiple exams to become a licensed teacher. Within the CU Denver program, you must pass your praxis exam prior to your final internship. This is the one numbered 4,000 or 5,933, and it's noted on your program plan. This may be, you may have an earlier date if you are an MAT candidate and you are intending to use your passing scores to waive any prerequisite courses that you were advised of when you were admitted to the program. So what this means is if you are going to be starting internship 1 and 2 in August, then you will need to pass the exam by November 1st. Again, a couple of months before you start your final internship. If you are enrolling in your first semester of internships that start in January, then you will need to have your praxis exams passed by April 1st. Please note that those of you in special ed, elementary, and early childhood, one of the multiple tests you have to take is focused on being a reading teacher. And because there is more coursework that you need to be exposed to, you do not need to pass this test until the middle of your semester of your final internship. I can't stress enough how important it is to access our Success Center for supports. They provide workshops, more broad general overview workshops to really understand the praxis, the way the course is designed, good study tips. They provide personalized study plans with access to free resources for all of our students. They'll help you do some score analysis if you don't pass on the first time and give you ongoing coaching support. And if you need to request accommodations, they can support that process. So it is so critical that you please utilize the Success Center. Look on the Canvas shell for the Success Center. It's filled with information, and they will also send out communication about any upcoming workshops for students. It's also really important that you register early for your exam. We really recommend if you are starting your professional year internships in the fall, the summer before you start, that is really when you need to be spending the majority of your time focused on studying and passing the test. We want you to get it out of the way before you start your first semester of internships because it will get intense. If you're starting your professional year internships in January, again, we want you to use the fall semester before starting that first semester of internships to really study and focus on passing that exam. It's also important that that will give you enough time to retake the exam if necessary. If you don't pass one of the tests or a portion of the test, Praxis does require that you wait 28 days in between retakes. And again, if you need to request accommodations either for a disability or if you are a second language learner, you need to leave at least 8 weeks in advance to do all of the advanced paperwork to request that accommodation. Again, we are here to support you with everything related to Praxis, particularly our Success Center. So please access those supports, study, and register for that exam early.
You might have heard her use the word please and recommend and things along that a lot throughout that. And I think that that's a really important thing to think about with the Praxis exam. If you don't have it passed, as she had mentioned, by the time, like, for example, if you're doing your last internship in January, if you don't have it done by December 1, then what ends up happening is that you end up having to do another, what they call an extended second internship when you would be doing your final internship, which pushes back everything by a semester. And so the sooner you start looking into the Praxis exam, the better, just so that you have as many opportunities. Because again, every month you can take it. But if you take it for the very first time in November and you don't pass, then you're into December, and then hopefully you pass it then, or then you're pushing back your internships. The other reason why I highly recommend taking it as early as possible is that a trend that I've started to see happen in our internships is that if people have a little bit of time in their final internship, they've been taking a second Praxis exam that's not directly, but at least connected to their areas of interest. So I've seen some of our math teachers take the science practice or computer science practice. You know, some of the social studies people will take English, because once you have your secondary license, you can start teaching in other areas as well. And that makes you a little bit more attractive as a candidate if they know that you could also teach a course in another area that's somewhat related. Do we have some questions about that? This slide here is just to kind of show, you know, some of the where some of the things that exist within our campus that are connected to support. So the main student commons is on the 7th floor of the Lawrence Street Center, which is the main building for the School of Ed. And so the student commons is where we have advising. There's a bunch of computers set up, meeting and studying rooms. Teacher ed events often happen there. Connected to that is the SAHD Student Success Center, which we were talking about earlier, which has a lot of opportunities for support for students. And then a floor down from that is where we have all of our Office of Partnership offices. So Cindy, Jody, and Rachel have all of their offices down there. So again, you know, I hope that, you know, I've been trying to, throughout all of this, talk about, you know, there are lots of opportunities for success. And so we have a lot of opportunities to kind of help support you through the university. So at the university level, we've got a fantastic wellness center. We've got a bunch of student organizations. There's clubs within the SAHD. We have Career Center, Disability Resource Services. So if you need accommodations for any of your courses or for practice, we have a Disability Resource and Service Center, Writing Center, Counseling Center, which is free. If you have questions, there are all of those people that we talked about tonight that are there to help support you. So the faculty mentors, academic advisors, so faculty mentors, me, the PDS site teams, the clinical teachers, professors, peers, all that kind of stuff. And then within the SCHD, if you have support and questions, we've got writing support in the Success Center, math support, praxis prep. We have actually kind of opportunities for food and financial aid, scholarships, and then social emotional supports as well. So that's mostly it, folks. But I'd love to be able to just hear from each and every one of you. I have 2 quick questions, and then I'll answer any questions, and then we are done for this evening. I started off tonight with that first question of, what are you most looking forward to? And now we've had a chance to be able to kind of learn hopefully a little bit more about the program. What are you most looking forward to? Has that changed or at all over the last little bit, or what just has you really pumped to be able to kind of dive in and become a teacher?
I still stand by my first choice, I guess. I just really look forward to, I guess, being a teacher, even
Great.
Practicing.
Same here. Very much looking forward to just diving in and meeting new kids and hearing their stories and just having a blast with them, hopefully.
Good. Sounds great.
I'm excited to meet other social studies teachers and hear their perspectives and other strategies and whatnot. So always good.
Love it.
I'm very excited to work with all of the students, and just honestly, I'm excited to learn how to be a good teacher.
Those are great things to be thinking about. And so I have one more question for you, and I want to hear from each and every one of you. What is a major challenge that you think you're going to face along this journey?
I'll start. I think being kind of like the authority figure, which I'm not really like an authority figure, which is something that I struggle with right now in my classroom. So I think it's just learning that to have that voice, and just I think it's going to come with experience. So yeah.
And I think, I think that that's an important thing to think about. We need to think about how do we manage classrooms. But I think everyone has their own style of doing things, and there are so many fantastic teachers that I work with that wouldn't consider themselves authority figures. But they really know how to be able to connect with our students and be able to support them and give them the things that they need to help build, honestly, in my mind, and I'm a similar type, Matthew, to what you were just saying. For me, it's all about how do we actually build the relationships with our students and know our students well enough so that we don't need to be that authority figure so much, but really the person that can help support them and that they know that they have that support. And so it looks differently. And so you'll get to see a lot of different kinds of ways that teachers teach. And there are some fantastic teachers that, like, I don't want to say rule the class, but like they're really on top of stuff and they have this very kind of proactive way to be able to think about management in the classroom. And then there are some that are much more like the way that you say it. And that's fine. So, but that's a fantastic thing to think about. What else?
The question was our biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with Matthew because I'm a very passive person. I'm not very good at putting my foot down. So classroom management for sure.
We don't teach a course in classroom management, but we talk.
And you should.
No, well, I think that we do a really good job of describing how do we think about the building of the relationships with students, to think about how do we work with our students to co-create classroom environments that lead to good learning.
Oh, definitely. I just think it's one of those things too that you can't really learn until you do it, I feel like. So it's just kind of nerve-wracking anticipating it, I guess.
And you'll all get to see different ways of how that works.
Right. Yeah.
And then hopefully that might be a really interesting thing for this group here to come together and talk about, like, what happens? What have you learned about classroom management? And how does that look? That could be a really interesting conversation. Cool.
Definitely for me, it's going to be like teaching harder subjects and whatnot, and like learning in, like I mentioned earlier, in such detail about like certain wars, certain events and stuff, and then teaching kids in a middle school setting versus a high school setting and having to like alternate is going to be interesting. I definitely see the authority issue that both of you were talking about. I luckily got to do like discipline training, martial arts stuff. They had like, I had to go and learn like what to do if a children is misbehaving, ignoring it, like targeting it, taking action to it, and like, yeah, I can't really like tell them to do laps around the school like I would at like a martial arts class. So it's definitely similar, like water but different lake. So yeah.
And as I said, as you get to know your students and as they get to know you, you'll see a lot of different changes in how you can support them in what happens in the classroom. Great. Did you go, Megan? No, you're next.
I think my biggest struggle is just going to be coming up with personalized experiences with each student, because it's very tempting to have blanket solutions for every problem, and for teaching content that sometimes makes it a little easy to miss individual needs that I think can sometimes be difficult to identify without really treating each experience with each person as unique as they are.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. What a great kind of like final reflection thought. I really like that, because we try as we can, and especially as a result of kind of what's happened with the pandemic, is we were trying to move away from this one size fits all approach to supporting students, because every student is so very different, right? And so if we build in these opportunities to kind of like only work with the main group of students and not think about things like how do we differentiate for different types of students, we're going to be losing students. And that's what we've been doing for hundreds of years here in the US, since the dawn of education in the United States. That's been an issue. And so I always try to look at every learning opportunity as one size fits one. How do we create those opportunities? And I hope that that's going to be a major goal as well, as you all dive into it. How do we do that without burning out as teachers. How do we create opportunities for that one size fits one? So I want to thank you all for sticking through this tonight. And I want to open it up to questions, but I also just want to thank you all. And I'm very excited to get to work with you all. And some of you I'll get to see in classes, and some of y'all will just get to kind of chat in informal ways like this, which is kind of almost as exciting as classes sometimes. So I want to say thank you. But I also want to open it up to any final questions.
What was your biggest challenge then when becoming an educator?
That's a great question. My entire group of my family are all educators. Both my parents were teachers. My grandfather was a teacher, principal, administrator, professor, dean of education. My grandmother taught in a one-room schoolhouse in rural East Coast Canada. Most of my aunts and uncles were teachers. I went into my teacher ed program thinking that I knew how to be a teacher because I just grew up in education. And so for me, it was the realization that to become a really good teacher, I needed to be coachable. So, you may not agree with everything that every single teacher that you work with within the next year and a half to 2 years says, but you can learn from absolutely every single. And I've seen some really interesting situations that have happened, but you really need to be able to learn from all of these situations, and you need to be able to take from it something in a very professional way. And so just make sure that you're coachable. That's tricky. And it's probably one of those, because you're going to be hopefully relearning how to be a teacher for the next 30 years. Other questions?
That's a good thing though. So
yeah, it's great. It's never the same. It's fantastic. You're like, gosh, this group of students weren't listening to me, and I figured out this thing and it's totally working, and you're just praying that it's going to work for the next week. So, and then you've got to you might have to think of something else, or you might have found something that works for the rest of the year. You don't know. It's never the same. You're always hopefully learning more and changing. Other questions? Thank you all so much. It was fantastic to get to meet you. You'll probably be seeing an email from me maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, with this recording. And then it'll also be CCing all the other folks that weren't here tonight. And I'm just truly excited to work with you all moving forward. And once you have my email, just anytime, just send me an email. I'm usually pretty quick to respond. And congrats and welcome to our SEHD.
Thank you so much.
Be well, folks.
Thank you.